Hello, and welcome back to Food Entertainment. So I'm going to be wrapping up the Dune event tonight, and I'll be doing it in this one review that will cover Dune 2021 and Dune Part 2 2024. Alright, well, I've taken a lot of time, obviously, talking about all the previous stuff, but since, I got really busy and tied up doing stuff, I will go ahead and go through basically the plot of Dune again, and I'll read both. Dune 2021, also known as Dune Part 1. Paul Atreides, a brilliant, gifted young man born into a destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most distant planet, most dangerous planet in the known universe to ensure the future of his family and people. Is malevolent forces exposed into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence. Only those who can conquer their fear will survive. That's Dune Part 1. Dune Part 2, 2024. Dune Part 2 explores the myths, journeys of Paul Atreides as he unites with Chani in the Fremen while on a warpath of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, he endeavors to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. Alright, well, now we got that out of the way, and like I said, you guys all know the plot of Dune. I've only, reviewed every screen adaptation of Dune, as well as the second and third books. Give me a second here. I don't like how it's too far above my head. I get a little close. Alright. Alright. Well, let's talk about the differences. And ultimately, what is the best adaptation of the first book? Well, in a lot of ways, there's no such thing as a bad adaptation of Frank Herbert's landmark book in the Dune Chronicles, Dune. But here's the changes they made, and the really big ones. And there's not that many of them, but there are a few. There's one very noticeable one, and this one I have been contemplating and told you that before I did this review, I would check a couple of things to make sure I'm right. I did watch the movie, but sometimes I'm a very busy man. Sometimes I forget things. Still too high up there. And now it's too low. All right, yeah, there we go. I think that's better. This is the first big one, and this right here. They do mention the Spacing Guild and its navigators. They do mention that these characters in Dune Part 1. They do mention them in Dune Part 1. What they don't do is show them. And that's a big liberty that should not have been taken. Because when Dune Part 3, which is probably what it's going to be called, it's probably not going to be called Dune's Messiah, although a lot of people want it to be called Dune's Messiah. But if you're going to call it Dune's Messiah, then that means that you have to be faithful to the second novel. And if you are going to be faithful to the second novel, then you're going to be forced to make the third novel into a two-part movie. And the director of these two films has no interest and has made it very publicly clear that he has no interest at all in making Children of Dune into a 2-part movie, which he would have to do because the 3rd book is almost as long as the 1st one. So it's probably more appropriately called Dune Part 3. And will be somehow be the conclusion of this director's vision of Dune. Which makes it, when you look at it like that, this kind of is his own story. But it still is very much based off of the 1st book, and quite well based off of it. But here's the problem. Even if you're not going to call the 3rd movie Dune Messiah, you're still going to have to deal with the liberties that was taken in not showing the Spacing Guild or the Navigators in the 1st movie. And what makes it so hard to get past that with me is the fact that this is the only adaptation of the 1st book on film that does not have the Spacing Guild and the Navigators shown on screen. The only one. The 1984 film shows the Navigators and the Spacing Guild. The 2000 miniseries, as well as the sequels, and we'll get into that, why that's important, also shows the Spacing Guild and its Navigators. One of the main villains in the 2nd novel, whether or not you're going to be faithful completely to the novel or not, one of the main villains in that 2nd novel is a Navigator. I forgot his name, but there is a Navigator in the 2nd novel, and that's why you had a Navigator that was kind of like a side villain in the 1st part of the 2003 miniseries Children of Dune. Is because that particular Navigator is very, very, very important to the story of Dune Messiah. And the 3rd Dune movie will be very much based off of the 2nd novel. So you have to have that Navigator in there. And it would be a whole lot easier to get that taken care of if we have already seen a Navigator in Spacing Guild representative in either one of these 2 films. But the problem is we didn't. So that's one change. And before I go on to mentioning editor liberties that were taken and changes, out of all of the adaptations of Dune, granted, yes, I do believe that the 2000 miniseries is the most faithful adaptation to the novel. Yes. And I do believe that the 1984 film is an epic sci-fi film, and if you want to get too into the lore of Dune, you just want to watch a great sci-fi film, you don't even have to be familiar with the world of Frank Herbert's Dune at all, and just put a good, excellent, groundbreaking sci-fi epic movie on. That is exactly what you get with the 84 film. With that said, my favorite adaptation of Dune is this. It's my favorite. It's not the most faithful, but it is my favorite. So I just want to put that out there for anybody who thinks that this is going to be a rant, and that's why I haven't made this video. I've just been really, really busy, and I really wanted to revisit at least the first 25 minutes or so for quality purposes and to answer the question that was on my mind. Was the Spacing Guild and the Navigators even mentioned? Happily enough, they were. They just weren't shown. Another liberty would be the character of Dr. Kynes. They changed the gender of the character of Dr. Kynes. Dr. Kynes is Chani's father in the novel. And Dr. Kynes happens to be an alias name. It's not the character's real name at all. The character's real name is Liet, and he happens to be the Fremen leader. The one that basically planted the seed and talked about the prophecy of the Mahdi. of the Savior would come from the outworld. And he's one that originally had the vision that Dune would become a green planet in a paradise. And he foresaw it before Paul did. So he's a very, very important character. They didn't at all mention that Dr. Kynes, it happens to be Liet, the Fremen leader. This mysterious, holy leader that no one knows who he is. They didn't even talk about that in Dune Part 1. And in addition to that, how Dr. Kynes dies. Dr. Kynes dies the way that he died in the miniseries. The pre-spice mass. When the spice goes to the surface from basically a like desert explosion, you know, where the stand explodes and it kills anything in its wake. After being thrown out into the desert to die from the Harkonnens, he tries to make it back to his people and pleads for his life to basically, I guess, from God. I always forget the name of this. Let's see. But you know, what the Fremen look up is Shai Hulud, praying to Shai Hulud to, you know, live so he can see his daughter and meet up with his people and see the future that he perceived come true. But he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he blows up in a pre-spice mess. That is the way he dies in the novel. That said, I really like the way that Dr. Kynes dies in this, because it's very, very cool. I like how the female character in this version goes ahead and knows that, yeah, I'm going to die, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take these Sardaukar troops with me, and I'm going to have them get, along with myself, being swallowed up by a giant worm. I thought that was cool and epic. And that's basically the part of the reason why I really like these over all the other adaptations, is because these are insanely epic. I mean, this film alone was nominated for like 6 Oscars. It didn't win any of them, but it was nominated. The fact that a weird, bizarre sci-fi film like this can be nominated for half of the catalog of Oscars at the Academy Awards is pretty phenomenal. Kind of reminds me of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won almost every Oscar, which is an even more bizarre and even weirder sci-fi fantasy film. It has to do with multiversing and stuff like that, which in a lot of ways, the Dune novel, that's kind of what Paul Atreides is doing, is he's multiversing. Well, they don't say that to you. They use some mythicism and some supernatural explanation, but that ultimately in the end, that's what he's doing. But that's a different conversation, which I will not be having on this channel at all, because I review movies. I don't go ahead and take you to physics school and give you my understanding of Einstein's theories of relativity. I don't really need to do that to talk about the Dune films. But I think it's pretty phenomenal that a weird movie like this was nominated for 6 Oscars. So it's very grand scale epic. The next change that they actually made is this. And this goes into the change they made, obviously, in Dune Part 2. And they made a couple of them. Now, what's cool about it is, since the director has no interest in actually making the 3rd novel into a movie at all, you can change the story a little bit. And I can tell you right now, if he changes it too much, and unfortunately he's going to have to, because of these mistakes that were made, you know, the changes that liberties are taken with this movie, is really going to hurt the box office when it comes down to Dune Part 3. It really is, because Yes, I know that these two movies are directed at movie fans and not loyalists that actually understand the world of Dune. I understand that. But you guys need to understand this. At least 50%, if not 60% of people that went to the movie theaters and watched these, accuracy and faithfulness to the source material matters to them. So what you have is 40% of the people that watch these movies, you don't care about the books, don't care about how faithful they are to the first book. And with the next movie, with the third movie, the second book, 40% don't care. I can guarantee you the other 60 does. Can I remind you that when Dune Part 2 came out, everybody that loved this movie went to Barnes & Noble and picked up the book, Dune, and read it. This may have been a very, very critical success and maybe one of the biggest movies of the year. To be told, it is the biggest movie of the year so far. It's not the most talked about movie of the year. The most talked about movie of the year is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, although it flopped at the box office. But this is the biggest movie of 2024 so far. With that said, there was a lot of complaining about this movie because of the changes that I'm about to tell you about. The war with the Harkonnens and the Emperor that leads into the galactic, intergalactic war, the Holy War that comes after it, that takes place in between the first book and the second book, which is like a 12-year thing or something like that. And forgive me, I'm not going to pick up the second novel and tell you exactly how many years the second novel takes place after the first novel. But one thing, what leads to that Holy War in the first book takes place over the course of 3 years, not 3 months. Which is the reason why in every adaptation of Dune, except for these two films right here, Alia, Hall's younger sister, is born and is very, very, very interesting character in the first novel. In the fact that she did not grow like a regular baby. She grew out at an exponential rate. To give you a little bit of an idea, the war takes place over the course of 3 years, but yet somehow, for some supernatural means, Alia goes from being born to being basically about a 6 or 7 year old, physical being within that time. And that is something I believe it is in the book as well. So, yeah. So she's alive and born in the first book. But she is not at all born in this movie. She is still in Jessica's womb the entire time. So you have that. That's one big change right there. 2 in fact. Another big change, which also has to do with Alia, is that there's what's known as the Husas Tanarak, and then there's the Abomination. And they didn't even talk about the Abomination. You see, when Jessica became the Reverend Mother, drinking the water of life with Alia inside of her, Alia got changed by it. And she becomes what's known as the Abomination, which of course we talked about with the 2 miniseries, what happens to Alia. So they didn't even They even scratch on that. They decide not to even talk about it at all in the film. Next big major change they made from book to screen on Dune Part 2 is this. Paul and Chani have a son. There's a reason why in the third novel, the main character's name is Leto Atreides II instead of Leto Atreides I. It's because Leto Atreides I is in the first novel. It is the about year and a half, 2-year old son of Chani in Paul. And what happens is the Harkonnens are the Sardaukar. I believe it's actually the Emperor Sardaukar that did it, or one of the two. They murdered that little baby. They murdered that little baby, slaughtered that baby, and Paul saw it, and when sleeping, and tells Chani, "Our son is dead," which makes you understand why he's so mad and so pissed off when he finally gets to confront the Emperor. It's because of stuff like that. But let's not put that into this movie. And then on top of that, another change from novel to screen on Dune Part 2 is this, and this right here is going to definitely affect the next movie. Chani is not opposed to the prophecy at all. She's not opposed at all. She stands side by side with the man she loves. And she understands the politics that Paul has to do. You see, there's what's called a political marriage and a concubine love. So, I think it's very well said in the first episode of Children of Dune, which is taken from the pages of the second novel, Dune Messiah. You had the princess saying, "I am his wife." It changed like, "You have his name. I am the one he calls wife." So, that's another big difference, is the fact that the director made the liberty to break up our two lovers by the end of the film. By the end of the film, Chani and Paul are broke up. They're no longer together. So I wonder how they're going to fix that in the next movie. So now we're at about 23 minutes, but I figured I didn't really need to go ahead and talk about the plot, because you don't want to know the plot, because it was the same plot as the last two times they made Dune. This one just has a bunch of changes and liberties that were taken, that changed it from the novel to the films. A lot more liberties that were taken than all the other adaptations of Dune. So let's talk about the quality. Both of them have basically the same exact quality. They are on 2.4:1 widescreen. They have phenomenal 4K HDR10 abilities, and these do have Dolby Vision on both these films, but they are very much HDR10 high dynamic range heavy, and they look insanely phenomenal. If you get a nice 4K TV in a 4K Blu-ray disc player, as well as a Dolby Atmos soundbar or a full-on theater-in-a-box system that has Dolby Atmos capabilities and have it set up properly, these two films are reference quality. If you want to show off how badass your home theater system or your cinema, depending on which one you're using, I have both, is put one of these in to show it off, because these are insane. I mean, the Dolby Atmos is so good on both of these that something that I don't really do often on my more compact home theater that has high technology on it, which is right next to me over here. Um, I usually don't ever have to turn down my soundbar. The sound is so good on these two movies, I have to turn my soundbar down. That's that's how phenomenally good the sound is on Dune 2021 and Dune Part 2 2024. That is how phenomenally good the sound is. Now, unfortunately, they are in CinemaScope 2.4 by 1 widescreen. This is sad because when I first saw this movie, Dune Part 2 2024, I drove down to my local IMAX theater, which is like about a town or two away, but within driving distance. It takes me about 35 minutes to get there. So I watched this movie on a 70-foot IMAX screen, and it was in true IMAX. It's Dune Part 2 might be the best go out to the theaters to watch a movie experience I have ever had. And I've seen like hundreds of movies on the big screen, and I really haven't seen anything quite like this on the big screen. And watching it in IMAX, I cannot stress that enough. If people didn't go to see this in theaters in IMAX, you missed out. You really missed out, because that is my preferred way to see it. But unfortunately, much like this movie, which has the same thing, I did not watch Dune Part 1 on the big screen. I was too busy dealing with a lot of domestic bullshit with a previous relationship, and I had to take care of stuff, so I didn't have a chance to see it on the big screen. But it was much the same thing. It was made for IMAX, and so everybody's preferred version of both of these films is probably the IMAX version. But unfortunately, Warner Brothers will not give it to us, so we're forced to watch it in 2.4 by 1 widescreen. CinemaScope format. But I cannot tell you how good these movies are. If someone on my channel watching right now has not seen these, you need to go see them and watch them in my preferred way to watch them at home. Buy the 4K. Don't stream. I said it 100 times, I'll say it 100 million more times probably in my lifetime. Physical media is always going to be better than streaming. Okay? Maybe one day I'll actually make a video and go more in depth and talk for 20 minutes about why streaming is not superior to physical media. And then maybe someone will start understanding, so that we don't have to have retailers or stores out there in our local areas like Target and Best Buy that refuse to stock physical media. And then all the stuff that we want to own, we can't get because Walmart doesn't want to stock it on their shelves. Yes, Walmart, I'm talking to you. Where are my Scream Factory releases? Where are my Arrow Video releases? Where are my Vinegar Syndrome releases? Where are my MVP releases? Where are my Criterion Collection releases? Where are my Kino Library releases? Where are they? You guys said you're going to come and rescue all of us. Where are they? Where are they? I mean, come on. Like, for example, I believe Species 2 came out in 4K from Scream Factory last Tuesday. And if it hadn't, it's going to be coming out in a couple of days. And I can guarantee you, I can go to both of the Walmarts in my town I live in, and you guys will not have it at all. But yet, you keep talking about how you own physical media and you will take care of the consumer that buys it. But yet you haven't. Shame on you, Walmart. Get your shit together. And yes, I can say that because I don't make videos for children, so I can say a cuss word or two every now and then. All right, well, sorry about the long wait on this. I do have another event I'm doing very quickly. So that's all I have to say about Dune. I hope you guys enjoyed my Dune Chronicles event, and I'll see you on my next event, which I hope you will enjoy too. Until then.